Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me this week. And my guest this week is a special guest. She doesn't run an Etsy shop, but she runs a business, a site that is very helpful to Etsy shop owners and creative business owners in general. I know we've mentioned this on the podcast before, and I've been saying since the beginning of 2015 that I was going to have her on, or somebody from the Academy of Handmade Artists and Supporters. So finally I do. My guest is Sharon Fain. She's one of the co-founders. Sharon, thank you so much for being my guest, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I've listened to your show and heard you interview a few of our members, so it's exciting to be on.
Yes, thank you so much. Every time someone mentions it, I think I always say, oh, I'm going to have them on. Oh, I'm going to have them on. And it's taken me over a year now. So I'm kind of embarrassed, but I'm really happy to have you on and to learn more about the Academy. So can we just start first with an introduction? Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Along with running Academy of Handmade, I have been doing PR and marketing basically since I graduated college and even in college. And I think I've always found myself working alongside creatives and kind of being this person who often builds a bridge between creatives and other people who kind of just scratch their head and don't understand creatives and like sort of translating that for people. And so that's always been a working relationship that I've loved and have always pursued. And so when I started working with my friend Casey, who runs an Etsy shop or ran an Etsy shop, it kind of launched me into getting involved in the craft scene and working in various capacities within, I guess, the craft world, working at a marketplace for a while and helping Casey with her business. And so, yeah, I found that to be like a very special and unique, I think, industry.
So basically you speak both languages. You speak creative and you speak everybody else.
Yeah, I like to think so. I mean, I feel it's always strongly been a passion of mine is to sort of identify when people are trying to talk to creatives, where they're kind of falling short and don't understand like how this isn't speaking to someone who is more of a creative. So, and I think even vice versa, I think creatives sometimes, find themselves not being able to express certain things to people. So, yeah.
Nice. Thank you. So let's talk about the Academy. What is the Academy of Handmade Artists and Supporters? How did it come about and who do you serve?
So it came about because Casey, who I mentioned, who's the other co-founder, and we had kind of reached a point where we had been involved in the craft world for a few years, and both of us got burnt out for different reasons in different ways. Mm-hmm. And we still miss a lot of our friends who were makers. And we saw a lot of them, after a few years of doing this work, start to really take off in their business. Mm-hmm. And besides not being able to figure out a way to regularly connect with them, there also wasn't a way to sort of like celebrate what they were doing. And this kind of came about because Casey and I both live in LA, and like award season. It was like the Oscars were happening and all of the stuff and all the nominations that happen. And so we were kind of like, there's nothing really comparable to that for makers. There's nothing that says that's a peer validation. That's, saying the people who understand what you do want to give you an award for being awesome. I think there's a lot of things out there that are ones where you kind of have to promote yourself in order to get votes. And you're telling people, vote for me.
Yes.
Which, it's more like a popularity contest. And I feel like a lot of creatives don't want to do that anyways. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we wanted it to be something where like it was a genuine honor, where it was really something where people thought of you. And I feel like that's much more of a gift to people, especially a gift to people doing work that, is often alone and can be very isolating and goes under recognized. So that's kind of how it came about. And then from there, we're like, well, how do you create an organization that is peer voted? Well, you kind of have to have some sort of system of validating that they are a peer of yours. So which kind of led to saying that you have to have some sort of barrier to entry as a membership organization, that only members can vote. And yeah, that's kind of where it took on from there. And then we kind of realized that within that we could house the tiers of celebrating, which is the award show, supporting makers, which is, organizing programming and workshops for them, and then the other tier, which is connecting them so that they can, meet with other makers and be with other people who understand the sort of struggles that they have to their business.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the awards and ceremony is only open to members to vote, but can they nominate people who are non-members, but also creatives?
Yeah. So the way that the awards work is that anyone can be nominated who, is a maker, and anyone can nominate who is in the handmade industry. We just ask that you affirm that you are in some way part of the handmade community. Okay. But only members are the ones that actually vote on the final award. So once all of those nominees come in, then the members vote on that. So, and then all members can nominate for free. And then for non-members, there's a $15 fee to nominate.
Oh, okay. Now, do you have a gala, like an award show for making the announcements, or is it done all online?
No, we actually have a show.
No.
That was the point of wanting to do this, is to have something that, made that sort of big deal about it that we wanted. So we've had 2 award shows so far, and they've both been a really fun time for people. And they've both been in LA, and this next one we're going to have in LA again. But it's going to be a little bit different this year. I think we're working with a charity, a local arts charity, to support them through like a silent auction and a raffle, so that that component of it is like a way to showcase some of the products that the nominees make. So like we can show what our members make and what nominees make, and then sort of raffle off and auction off those items as well. So it's a little bit more of a gala and gallery, I guess, of the event this year. So,
wow. So, is there a dress code?
We cocktail attire, but yeah, we definitely encourage creativity and having that fun, getting dressed up for something really special. And that's really what we wanted it to be, something where it really felt like this is super meaningful and thoughtful at every point.
Nice. So now the award show is open to all members across the country, so people can fly in to attend. It's not just for the LA chapter.
Oh, no. Yeah. The award show is held in LA because that's where Casey and I are based. I mean, wherever you hold the show, it's naturally going to be a location issue that not everyone can come to it. But last year we had people fly in who weren't even members for it, that just wanted to be a part of it, that were in Texas and Atlanta.
Wow.
Yeah, people came in from all over for it, and it was a really good time. So, and it's just, that's what we love doing, is like meeting people that are makers and feeling that connection all over. And people that win are from all over too. And so that means that when they, win, sometimes they can come and sometimes they can't be there, but we'll read, if we know they can't come, then we'll get a speech from them, or a thank you from them as well. So it's nice to just feel like that connection.
Now, so for 2016, when is the award show going to be held?
It's going to be held at the end of April. We are actually just firming up the date. I should have it on by the time this show airs, but it's going to be at the end of April. But nominations will begin February 1st.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so just if you're listening, check the show notes, and by then we'll have the actual date for when the show will be. But you can start nominating and voting now, right?
Yes.
Okay. And let's talk about what membership involves. What else does AHAS offer members?
So there are 2 components to membership. there's the online component, and then there's the chapter component, which the chapters are local in person. And we're working really hard to grow those this next year. I'd like to have 20 chapters by the end of 2016, which is a lofty goal. We have currently a Seattle chapter, a San Francisco chapter, an Orange County chapter, a San Diego chapter. And did I say San Francisco? Los Angeles? Okay. Yeah. I started losing track there at the end of all the places. So we have 5 in-person local chapters. And essentially those are to function as ways to connect local makers monthly. And we do about one event a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. We try to slow things down. November, December, which is when makers are the most busy and probably are filling orders and can't really get away from their businesses too much. And the holidays are just crazy anyways. So we will usually slow things down there, but we have everything from our product and design roundtable, which is us getting together, sharing what we're working on with our latest product or project, and then going around and everyone kind of gives input as to what, they think about it. It's kind of a mix of an art critique / a brainstorming session.
Right.
But it's not as harsh as an art critique if you went to art school. It's nothing of that magnitude. No tears are shed, I promise.
Right.
It's very supportive. So it's, everything from saying, I'd change this about your packaging or something like that. And we hold them in usually someone's shop. So who owns the shop is there, and they can kind of say oh yeah, that would be perfect, or things like that don't sell well because you priced it at this, or, they can give input too. So.
Okay. Now, are the chapters, is membership in the local chapters capped to where you'll only allow a certain number of people to belong to a local chapter before having to open maybe a second one in that area, just to keep things intimate and easier to handle? Or is it open to an infinite number of people?
At this point, it's open to an infinite number of people.
Okay.
We haven't really crossed that bridge. We're still small and growing. We've only been in existence for a couple years now.
Okay.
But yeah.
How is the online chapter different from the local chapters?
So the online, we provide a lot of programming on there too, because even people who are within a chapter area can't always make it out to the monthly events. And so that functions as a way to touch base. We have a hangout with an expert every month. So that's interviewing accountants and lawyers and, other sorts of professionals that can help your business grow. And figuring out, how you could incorporate them into your business. And then we also have panel discussions, online conference call panel discussions, where we talk with experienced makers about how they've handled a particular situation in their business. We have text-based chats in our forums that, would be like any sort of other online chat that you would have. And those are for topics like, how to overcome your fear of self-promotion, goal setting, things like that.
So I see that Nessa J, who was on the podcast before and talked about the Academy, is part of your online chapter. How does that work?
So Nessa and another woman, Shadi Brown, are 2 people that we added this year to support our online activities, because we were growing so much with people who were outside of, physical chapters that we had already started. So we felt that it was really essential to have leadership and people that were able to be thinking up and coming up with programming dedicated specifically to meet the needs of our online community.
Okay. Now, what sets AHAS apart from other crafter communities?
Well, I feel like there's a few distinctions. I think the first is there really aren't a lot of maker communities that are paid, that are solely just for the purpose of community. So there are kind of communities that are built around people that are maybe like a coach or a consultant of some kind. But ours is strictly, we're here to be like any other kind of industry trade organization that you would have, in another industry, not just in craft. So there's that. And so we just exist for the sole purpose of community. We're paid, which I think, you can go into the Etsy forums or other places where, and there's a lot of Facebook groups, I feel like, that pop up. Mm-hmm. But I think when you have that sort of paid membership, it indicates a seriousness about your business that is maybe not always found elsewhere. So you kind of weed out naturally a lot of people who are in there just to self-promote.
Right.
Or who are in there asking a lot of, I guess you call them like newbie questions, which is not to say that we don't have members who are maybe more on the beginner side, but I think it's people that, are going to research and Google things, or who have had prior business experiences that can enlighten them. So they're maybe not asking super newbie questions, I guess.
Right.
And usually, if you're starting out like that, you kind of don't know the level of seriousness at which to take your business. So it's people who have kind of, decided like, oh, this is going to be a thing. I want this to really be some real income in my life. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you're full-time necessarily. Some people in our membership take their businesses very seriously and have decided it's just a part-time endeavor. But it's still something which they take both the business side and the craft side very seriously.
Okay. Now, may I ask how much membership is if someone is willing to or is interested in joining?
Oh, yes. So it's a $15 application fee. Okay. And then from there, once you're accepted, it's $10 a month for membership.
Okay. And so once someone becomes a member, they get access to other members, networking opportunities, and the award show. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, so all of our online programming that I kind of mentioned that Nessa and Chatty are spearheading, which is, chats with other members, being able to ask questions in our forums. We have a library of archived of all of the hangouts we've done, all of the resources we have.
Oh, nice.
We try to have a monthly worksheet. We've organized things like we did a member gift swap that we did this year. We're going to be starting up a mentorship program in 2016. And I'm trying to think what else. There's a lot. We also have people who are who are members and who are also just supporters of makers, offer benefits to our members. So it's usually discounts on their programming, things like that.
Oh, so if someone has a service for people in the creative or handmade industry, members can get possibly discounts on those services.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Nice. So now, do most members tend to already be running full-time creative businesses, or are there some that are maybe still working a day job and trying to build up? And do you have a preference for whom you want to join the academy?
We have people that we're asking who take, like I said, their business seriously and the craft side seriously. It doesn't mean that you're full-time necessarily. It doesn't have to be, your sole income for you to be a part of us. But we want to see that you're taking both aspects of that seriously. Because I think there's a lot of people who are hobbyists, or what some people call jobbyists, which is they're selling stuff online and they're getting money from it, but they're not pricing it, so that it's any sort of sustainable business. Yeah. We're not really for the jobbyists. We're for people that, really want to make it a business and are interested in, wholesaling and are interested in other opportunities other than just, throwing up an Etsy shop and, putting things in there whenever they feel like it situation. Right.
Okay. So is it safe to say that not everyone gets accepted into the academy?
No, not everyone who applies does get accepted.
Okay.
Though I feel like we lay out pretty specifically what we would like from you.
Okay.
So if you don't make what you sell, and you're not somebody who has a business that supports makers, then we would probably not accept your application.
Okay. Okay, cool. So we've talked a little bit about what your vision is for the Academy for 2016, expanding into other chapters. And I just want to talk a bit more about what direction you see it going. And also with regard to expansion, if someone is listening to this now and they don't have a chapter in their local area, how can they go about bringing one there?
Well, we talk about this on our website. They can get more information at academyofhandmade.com/chapters. We lay out information there about it. And also there's a form to fill out if you are interested, and it kind of walks you through the process of how that goes. But essentially what we're looking for is people who want to just hold an interest meeting in their local area, which means that you will kind of be in charge of picking a location and letting people in your area know that are makers about bringing Academy of Handmade to the local area. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be the leader for that chapter. It just means that you're helping to start forming some interest around it. So that's the main way that we have people kind of begin to see if that's a possibility in their area.
So now, in addition to running the Academy and everything that's connected to it, how do you balance that and being a business owner as well?
I think part of it is like the balance of all of this is I'm constantly pursuing the things that I enjoy the most. You know, the reason why I do the work that I do and have structured my business endeavors in this way is because I'm wanting to have my work, and not everyone wants to do this, have my work interplay nicely into the things I would already be doing anyways, right? That was really important when Casey and I started this, is that we kind of looked at how our lives are already, and that Academy of Handmade would feed nicely into the structure of our lives, which is, what do we enjoy doing? We enjoy going to craft shows. We enjoy hanging out with makers. We enjoy talking about business with these people. So while it's work at some level, it's nothing that I'm like, oh gosh, I have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, this is stuff I really like to do. So I'm very lucky in that way.
Yeah. Okay, so Sharon, let's talk about social media. How important is it to what you do? And is that something you touch on at all with the Academy?
I mean, I think social media is huge for what we do. The first person that we ever got as a member who wasn't like an immediate friend of ours that we already knew, was like a stranger, was through social media. She found us on Instagram.
Oh.
That was back when I would say we had an Instagram that was not anything spectacular. You know, I think we probably had like a couple hundred followers, and she found us and was like, oh, these people seem like, you know, they're wanting to do something I'm interested in. So there's that. But this last year, I think we've really focused on, you know, if we want to serve makers everywhere, we kind of really need to be able to connect with them in a very, I guess, like, you know, high capacity way. And I think, you know, social media does that. Instagram has been huge for us for that. We've, you know, started Pinterest and Twitter and Facebook as well, and upping our game there. But I think for the most part, Instagram is the place where I think a lot of makers are hanging out, and where we're able to cultivate good relationships. And that's where a lot of our members in general, I think, have found us too. So,
wow. Now, do you believe in the philosophy of being everywhere on social media? And do you think you're going to make that a point with the Academy to, you know, be on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram? Or do you believe it's just better to stick with where your people are and what's working, even if you're not everywhere.
I mean, I don't think you need to be everywhere. I think you need to know, like, it's not bad to have a Twitter account and not use it a lot, or it's not bad to have a Facebook account and not have that be the central focus of your social media strategy. So it's not bad to open those things. You just don't need to put pressure on yourself to make those. You just have to know how much those things can actually benefit you, I guess, how important they are to your business.
Yeah.
Because Twitter is probably not that important to most makers' businesses. And Facebook is probably really important to some makers' businesses and not important at all to others. So you have to figure that out. And I would say focus on the places where you both enjoy interacting and using the platform, and where your people are at too.
Okay. So what do you think, or what have you seen just from having been part of the creative community, are some of the most common mistakes that creative business owners, or maybe in particular Etsy shop owners, either or, some of the most common mistakes that you see them making when it comes to running their creative or handmade businesses?
I think the common mistakes are, I don't know if I'd call it a mistake, but I think a common feeling, which I guess can lead to certain behaviors, is not being comfortable with self-promotion, and promoting your business in general. And so I think that I think is a huge barrier for most makers, and overcoming that. Yeah, so I think self-promotion is a big one, and learning to overcome that. I think the other thing is really understanding where you kind of want to take your business and being able to plan out where you want to go. And I think the endpoint of what you want from your business is really going to determine what your business looks like and how it's structured. And it's going to really mean that your business might not look like everyone else's business. And so you kind of have to discount a lot of the good advice out there, because it's not going to be applicable to you. There's a lot of advice that won't fit your business, and kind of knowing when to reject that and when to accept advice that will improve your business.
I'm so glad you said that. I struggle with that, and I think a lot of people do, because there's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of bad too, but good advice. But then the truth is, not all good information is applicable to everyone, and for every business. And I'm slowly realizing that even good advice and good strategies that some people that have worked for others might not necessarily apply to my situation. And I think
exactly.
That's a good point to put forward.
Yeah. And I feel like that in my own business, because I run a very uniquely operated business. I run a membership organization that, you commit to be in for a year. And it's only open 4 times a year for membership. So because of that, there's certain selling strategies that just will never work for me. And I have to discern that that's okay, and not worry about that, and not try to bend my business to that good advice, and stick on the path that I know I want, because I know I want a certain end goal for my business.
Yeah. I like that. That's not the Academy, right? The Academy is open year round.
No, Academy of Handmade membership is only open 4 times a year now.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you said that. Okay, so only 4 times a year people can join.
Yes.
What 4 times of the year are those?
In January, then again in the spring. That date is yet to be determined.
Okay.
And then in the summer, July or August, and then usually in October.
Oh, okay. And for each of those times, how long is the window of opportunity open for people to join?
We have varied it, but it's usually about 2 weeks.
Wow.
You can pre-apply to become a member. And so that when the membership window opens, that's when we would process your application. So you can apply right now, anytime. But we don't actually accept people except for 4 times a year. It's just because we're so small, and the way that processing applications works. It's too much to just have it happen whenever. There needs to be like dedicated time for it.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And that's because it's just you and Casey doing it.
I have a virtual assistant. Okay. That is one thing I got this year, which I'm very glad for.
Nice.
But yeah, no, we're a small team.
Okay. Okay, good to know. So if someone is listening now and they put in an application, does it let them know that it will be like that what's the word? Membership will they won't hear back for a certain period of time?
Yeah. We try to make it very clear that if you were to apply when it's not a current membership window opening, that you're not going to necessarily get in and enjoy the benefits of membership until the next window opens.
Oh, okay. Okay, good to know. And thank you for explaining why you do it. I know some marketers do that just, to make sure that, they sell quickly and, yeah. right up front. I know that's one strategy where they're like, it's closing, we're ending it, buy now. But thank you for explaining. Now, how would you advise Etsy sellers in particular? Because I know the majority of people who listen to the podcast sell on Etsy or want to sell on Etsy. How would you advise them to go about plugging into the larger creative community outside of Etsy? So I know the Academy is one way of doing that, but what other strategies can you advise them of?
Well, the more that they participate in markets and craft shows within their local community, I think that's huge. And then when you're at those things, be intentional, get people's cards, be friendly, follow up. Most makers really want to help and connect with other makers. I find at those things, they don't usually see you as competition. Mm-hmm. It's, a very collegial type of event. And then from there, I think, if there's a local shop that has a lot of handmade items in it that's selling there, inquire like, oh, who is this person? Are they local? And then just, I think emailing people and talking with them and asking them out for coffee, things like that in their local community is a big deal. And I think people are usually open to doing those things if you want to. And I know a lot of makers are introverts, which is kind of why the Academy is nice, because it gives that sort of structured social and business interaction where you don't have to be the one who's like, hey, I want to hang out. I see you're a maker too. So I find that makes an easier time for makers who are a little bit more shy. And then I think even just going online and going into Facebook groups or checking out who your local Etsy team is, there's very vibrant communities that exist for makers, even like just going onto like meetup.com or something and seeing what's out there or putting something out there can start to cultivate that kind of community. And sometimes people don't even know that those communities are already existing, and they have to kind of figure out how to tap into them.
Okay. Thank you. I found Meetup to be very useful for getting to meet local people in the local area that are like-minded, business or whatever. I mean, you can use Meetup for almost anything, but if you're looking for specific communities, you can find almost any there, and they tend to be really active and involved.
Yeah, there can be some meetups, and that's the thing with Meetup, right? It's very dependent on whoever the person is that's organizing the meetup. But there are some real go-getter people out there who do a really great job and who are very organized about creating great, community opportunities for people.
Yeah. I say to, myself, I'm not like, I wouldn't spearhead it, but I'm a good member. Like I'll be there for the events, but I'm not planning anything. I don't know. Like I'll show up. I know that's one of the problems with those sometimes, because people don't show up and don't, stick to the plan. But yeah. Do you have any specific tips or advice for Etsy sellers to grow as creative business owners? I think you kind of mentioned a lot of good tips already.
I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I kind of just feel like there is some really bad advice out there, and there's a lot of people that want to, I feel like prey upon makers sounds very dramatic, but I think some of these people are kind of predatory by offering continual bad advice and charging a lot of money for it. So I kind of think there does need to be like a maker beware, be always wondering like, who is this person? Question like, you know, who are their friends? Who's endorsing them? Why should I trust them? Where is this advice coming from? And, you know, does this match up with what I know to be true about my business? I think, yeah, I feel like I've just seen a lot of really terrible advice lately. Sometimes very well-meaning, and sometimes, you know, people who are just trying to sell you on a program or a product. And unfortunately, a lot of Etsy sellers will get roped into those things. Right. And then, you know, in some cases, it does a lot of damage to their business by following that advice.
Are these the types of things that within the Academy of Handmade community that you share? Like when you see things that you don't think are good for the creative community, you share it within your community on the Academy so that people know that they're getting trusted, vetted information?
I mean, I never personally go out of my way to post something and say, you know, this person is terrible, you shouldn't listen to it.
Well, yeah.
Because I think that obviously as a counter.
Yes, that's true.
You know, why should I trust her then? She's just, you know, bashing people because she sees them as competition.
That's true. Yeah.
Whatever. I have no idea. But I always, so sometimes people will say, you know, what about this person? Is this worth it? And I will always happily share, here's what I've heard about this, you know, or here's what to think about. Here are things that would cause me to have red flags. And usually other people in our community will also join in and say, oh yeah, I've not heard good things about that. So we have a lot of experience within our community, and people who have, I feel like, quote unquote, been around the block a few times. Who've seen things come and go, and are pretty wise to what's good practice and what isn't. And will say, you know, oh, I don't think that's something worth investing in. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think that's one of the benefits of belonging to a community like that, where people for one thing, I think when you pay to belong to something, you treat it differently than a community that you don't. You have a bit more responsibility when you put something on the line, like your money, and then sharing information with other people who've, like you said, been around the block helps, because everyone only knows so much, and so it's just nice to have other people to bounce stuff off of.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When you pay for something, you definitely treat it a lot differently, and there's a seriousness that I think comes with that. That's different than, you know, I'm in a random Facebook group. Why should I trust anything in here that anyone's saying?
Yeah. Now, Sharon, are there any resources right now that you're using that you're finding very helpful that you wouldn't mind sharing with us? It could be a tool or a book or an app.
I feel like I am constantly going to Creative Live.
Oh yeah.
and watching their stuff, and even buying their videos to refer back to. So I feel like they're a constant resource for me, and they usually always have something that's like there's always new content coming out that I'm like, oh, I can apply that to my business. Or it's just a good way to see what other people are saying and be like, oh, is that something I know to be true or not? You know, what's the kind of advice that's being given out there right now about stuff? So, yeah, I would say Creative Live. And then this year in my business, I started using the task organization system app called Trello. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yes, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And I have to say that, especially working with my VA, that has been an amazing app to sort of organize us. And anytime I have some sort of thought or want to have a blog post idea or something, I just like throw it into Trello, so it kind of like collects all of these thoughts for me. So that's been a great tool. And then I feel like I probably use Canva,
Yes.
which is a graphics editing tool, probably like every day in my life. Yeah, those three.
Cool. All right. I'll have links to those in the blog post for this episode. I recently discovered Creative Live as well, and I try to make the live shows, but some of them are just worth paying for just to have that access to after.
I fully agree. And a lot of them will have workbooks that are just incredible. Some of them I still refer back to those workbooks and print them out on a regular basis to use in my life. So, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Now, Sharon, if someone wants to get in touch with you or has questions about the Academy, how can they reach you? Or what's the best way for them to get more information?
Well, there's a lot on our website, academyofhandmade.com. But you're welcome to just email me personally at sharon@academyofhandmade.com and ask me any questions you would like. So most questions, I feel like we've tried to be very thorough, and most questions are probably answered on our website.
Okay. Yes, the website has a lot of information, and so definitely check it out. I'll have a link to it. But again, it's academyofhandmade.com. And Sharon, thank you so much for sharing all this information.
No problem. I also wanted to offer a discount on nominations for all of your listeners. So if they wanted to nominate for $5 instead of $15, they can use the code ConvoMe at checkout when they go to nominate.
Oh, wow. Thank you for doing that. And so I'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you, Sharon. That's very generous of you. And I thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for taking the time out. Don't forget, the nominations are open now. When do they end?
They go for a month.
Okay. So the end of February.
Yes.
All right. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.